Welcome, Selwyn. We are so happy to have you here with our live Q&A session on the annual plan. My name is Lydia Glidden. I'm the Mayor of Selwyn, and I am joined here tonight with Councillor McLeod, Councillor at Large, and Deputy Mayor Big Red Shepherd. And yeah, we can't wait to get into this business with you. Look, there's a few things I want to explain how Slido works, and so how you can ask the questions. And so scan the QR code that you see on your screen, or enter the wee bit there for the website and pop your questions in there. You'll have to put a name in, and we can't wait to see your questions up on screen here so that we can actually start answering them. I think some people have already sent some through, so that is super exciting, but yeah, stoked to see those. I just want to tuck into a little bit of what is an annual plan. And so an annual plan is a component of an LTP, and so every year you set the budget for the year, and so what you're going to do for the year. And I know that council didn't have one last year. We know that we have a good opportunity this year to change what was predicted in the long-term plan by reviewing what we are doing and what services we will provide and council will deliver, how much it costs and how much you pay for it. And you know, I think this is a really great opportunity for the community to have their say. So why are we talking about the annual plan now? So consultation happens now. We need to set rates by the 1st of July. And so we want to give enough time to allow for 6 weeks. I think it's really important that we give you a good amount of time to read the annual plan, digest it, have a think about what you really want to see us deliver and what you think of the savings that we are proposing to you, and then give us some really good feedback, because that feedback directly informs the decisions that us at council here make. And so you need to understand how important that actually is. We do read your submissions and we do take your feedback on board. So please help shape our future space. How does it fit with long-term plans? And so an annual plan is every 3 years. No, actually a long-term plan sits in a 3-year block, and either side of a long-term plan is an annual plan. So when we do a long-term plan, that is effectively an annual plan in its own, but we are setting a 10-year outlook. And on the other sides of that are annual plans, and so that is the opportunity that you have to review what we have said that we're going to do in that 12 months. Some of the drivers for this year's plan. This year's annual plan is the first one for us as a newly elected council. And during elections, we heard from you really clearly that rates increases were too high. Affordability really does matter to you, and council needs to live within its means. And so this annual plan is the first opportunity for the new council to respond directly to that feedback while still delivering essential services. I think it's really important to also note that this annual plan is a really big steer towards the long-term plan. There are only certain mechanisms that we can change the way that we deliver service this year. The long-term plan is the really big opportunity where we start from scratch, from a clean sheet of paper. So some of the things that we are trying to do is we are trying to slow those down so that we can make those decisions through the long-term plan. How do we deliver lower rates? There's a few things that we've gone through here, and so what we've done is actually used a prioritisation tool around using what is core service of council as a priority, and then making decisions around the other stuff. And so some of the stuff that we've talked about is a user pays approach, and that sits around dog fees and resource consents, around, I don't know whether everybody is aware, but sometimes it is offset by the general rate. And for a user pays situation, we want to take a step towards user pays for more of that than offsetting it with the general rate so much. We want to spend less in some areas, and some of that is around community funding, and some of it is our strategies. We want to delay some projects, as I've said, for the long-term plan, and some of it is reducing or scaling back services. What we want to be really careful to do is not trigger a special consultative process, and stay with me, because I know it's a bit technical in the terms, but if we move too far away from what we have said that we're going to do in the past, we trigger a special consultative process, and it means that the Office of the Auditor General has to audit what we put out there. And so we do that for long-term plans, but not necessarily annual plans. There's cost and time associated with triggering that process. So yeah, tonight we want to walk through what's been proposed and how each of those levers look for you. So the proposed changes are within the three options: user fees and charges, as we've talked about, making changes to the capital works program, reducing the economic development funding, reviewing the district park project, which is based here in Rolleston, reducing events funding and grants funding, and reducing our operating costs. There's a little icon there around Upper Selwyn Huts, and it's to do with their licence fee and targeted rate, which we agreed that we would review that through the annual plan process. So we are working with the Upper Selwyn Huts community to work through their licence fee, targeted rates, and some other opportunities that we have there. Proposed rates options. These are a point in time, in my view. We have confidence in the 5.4 and the numbers to get to that. I think what's really important to note here is that Council has directed staff to find further savings as well, and we will work through that together over the coming months and through the deliberation space as well. So the 5.4 is the number that we have the confidence in to go out to the annual plan, but we think it's actually really important to have those conversations with you, with our community and our people, to get the feedback on what we are actually proposing. I think it's really hard because, you know, there's no single rates increase that is good for everybody, and you know, councils use weighted averages to fairly work that out as well, and so the 5.4 is a weighted average, and I won't go into the technical terms because I'll go too deep and I'll lose you, which is not going to be a good option for a Q&A session. Look, for the 4.9 rates decrease, we would need to take away unspent budget, make further reductions in staff costs and our consultancy spend. So staff are currently running numbers on what that looks like at the moment. And, you know, however, if we move towards that option, there could be impacts on our statutory requirement and levels of service throughout the year. So we're just trying to weigh up all the options that we have. Selwyn water responsibilities. This has been a huge step change for us here at Council. So I think most of you are aware that drinking water and wastewater has been taken out of Council and put into a Council-controlled organisation. So that means from the 1st of July this year, residents will be billed separate by Selwyn Water for your drinking water and wastewater charges if you have those. Selwyn Water is currently preparing their water services strategy, and so that has the detail and the services and the costs and that, and they will and have committed to coming out to our in-person community meetings as well to have conversations with you. So please feel free to engage with them They will also take the water services strategy out for engagement in May, and so it is really important that you are aware of this and you feed into it, because your voice really matters into what Selwyn Water is delivering. Increase user pay charges. So, we talk about how are the ways that we can change the way that we operate. And so the potential saving that we have here is $2.9 million. Examples of this are dog registration increasing by $8, building consent fees have an increase, and some increases to fitness and pool classes and membership fees. Now, they only increase slightly, and I have gone through my book, and some of them are around 20 cents, but actually it has a huge impact on what the general rate subsidises part of that service. Change the timing of capital works projects. And so the first thing that the big change for us is the removal of drinking and wastewater projects, because they've been transferred to Selwyn Water. And some of the other projects we are looking to rephase to align with our spending and be realistic about what we can actually deliver in the next financial year. So some of the impacted projects are Selwyn Duns Crossing Road roundabout, Lincoln Park and Ride. There's another couple of roundabouts there, an extension, some of the Lincoln Town Centre upgrade, and Rolleston Town Centre development. And this is just some elements of it. It's not actually saying that we're going to put the whole project in the bin. It's just rephasing what we can realistically deliver. Scaling back economic development. So we're looking to reduce the funding by 75%. So the potential saving there is $650,000. Look, my view on this is that I think that we need to operate a little bit differently, and it applies to some of the other savings that we have coming up. I think that council should be the enabler in this situation and not necessarily the baton holder. I think that we have great success in partnering with our community to deliver economic development and some of our other strategies and services, because there's amazing people doing great things in our community, and I think that enabling them is a better way for us to function. So economic development is not disappearing entirely, it's just more targeted and limited, and we need to think outside the square of how we deliver this stuff. Reviewing the district park. So the district park is planned to be on the land near Levi and Whedon's Road, sorry. And I think we just really need to make sure that we are delivering well for our community, and have we got the scope, size and scale right. And that it is our job as a new council to ask these questions and make sure that we are using the space that we do have in the best way possible. Reducing events funding is a potential saving of $107,000, and look, I think it goes along the same lines as the economic development. I think that we need to learn to work a little bit smarter with what we have, and note that we don't have to hold the baton to deliver all of these events in the community. There are amazing people that deliver great events, and actually how can we help them be successful delivering events. So look, it's not actually throwing out all of the event funding, it is just some of it. And I think that we have some big decisions to make through the deliberation space on how we deliver this service for our community. I think with Anzac Day approaching, it's really important to note that we, with this review, there is no impact to Anzac Day funding. We recognise this is really important to our community, and again, this is our community that deliver these events, and fits along the line of enabling them to be successful. Reduce grants funding, and so look, some of these grants are underutilised. They don't get entirely used, and so that makes natural sense to drop what the dollar amount is of those events, those funding. There are some other things around, if we look at the tertiary scholarships, well, there's two tertiary scholarships per high school in this district, and then there was 2 added last year for other options or people attending other schools outside of the district. And, I think that in this day and age, we just really need to be careful with what we're doing and scale things back down a little bit. But yeah, all of the grant funding just has a little bit removed from the top of it. We're not taking them all away. We are just reducing the dollar amount that is available. And so, fits along the line of being a little bit smarter with what we've got. Reduce operating costs, and I think this is a really interesting one. I am really keen to hear from our community around how do you feel if we close facilities during Christmas, over the New Year period, and on some public holidays? And is it all facilities? Is it some? And I'm really interested to see how that will affect people in our community. There's the other option of to go cashless at our facilities, except here at the Rolleston HQ office. And actually there is quite a saving for going cashless, but again, we really want to hear from you at the community what you think of that. If you pay cash, I think it's important that we hear from you what the effect is. And some of them are reducing council-run library programs and exhibitions. So some of it is, what is displayed in the museum displays within our libraries. Some of the other ones with operating costs is scaling back work on the strategies. So the youth strategy, the aging well strategy, and the bicultural strategy. And so again, it's the same type of scenario as not throwing them all out, but keeping some support there. And I think we need to look to our community because, again, there are great people delivering, and how can we help them be successful? Upper Selwyn Huts. And so for Upper Selwyn Huts, we have targeted engagement in consultation with the license holders at Upper Selwyn Huts. And we went through a really long process of the future length of the deed of license, and I think council made a really good decision to provide those licenses for a term of 30 years to give our people a good outlook, because these are our houses, these are people that live here, and that's something that I'm actually really proud of, is that we made a great decision there for that community. The licence fee for each property in Upper Selwyn Huts is proposed to be reduced from $1,389 to $575 annually. But this actually reflects the recent transfer of water services to Selwyn Water, and offset the cost of compliance with the terms and conditions on the deed of license. So it's really important to note that Selwyn Water Limited is also going to engage with Upper Selwyn Huts residents on drinking and wastewater specifically. So I think that is great, and I look forward to the engagement with Upper Selwyn Huts. Look, we're also proposing to provide waste and recycling bins for each hut property based on their household needs. So, there's a bit of a targeted rate to cover the yearly cost of providing that service, and that's just similar to the same service that residents across Selwyn receive as well. Community impacts. I wonder, do you guys want to have a yarn about community impacts?
Sure.
Yeah. I've done a lot of talking here, and so but these are these are the impacts that some of our decisions will have on people. And so do you want to talk about the families?
Yep, it's Tracy here, Councillor at Large. We're really aware of the impact of anything that we do in our community, that everything's about people. So in growing towns like Wollaston, the biggest benefit for families is that the rates increase is lower than was first forecast. And to be clear about this, the rates forecast was around 13.3%, and that included water, all of the Selwyn water stuff. So the 5.4 that we've got down to doesn't include the Selwyn water charge, but we still have an expectation that it's going to be below that 13.3% by a good margin, and that makes a difference to your pockets. We know that these are tough times, and the fuel crisis is going to make them tougher. There may be some family-friendly events that may not run, or we may scale them back, as Lydia said. But we're also looking to you as our communities to partner with us in different ways. The dog registration fee increase, it's my understanding that increase in fee means that dog registrations now pay for themselves, that they are not subsidised by the general rates. Dog parks do still get some subsidy from, still part of the rate subsidy, but dog owners will be paying the full cost involved in registering dogs. And I think those people who still watch the news and read the news online, we've seen a lot of stuff about dogs recently, and this is something that we have to be really careful about, including that we don't make dog registration too high, that we actually discourage people from registering their dogs. So the council has really thought about how we can walk that line. Pool fitness class and membership fees are increasing slightly. Like Lydia, I've had a look at this. In some cases it's 20 cents, it's $1.08. I know every dollar counts, but we have to look everywhere to make small and big savings so that everybody across the district has a lower rate increase. As has been discussed a lot, you are going to receive a separate Selwyn water bill for your drinking water and waste water. That sits outside this plan and is an addition to the 5.4. But what I can say in my 5 months that I've been a councillor for your whole district is that this council, together with leadership from the mayor, has worked really hard making sure that Selwyn Water understands that this charge has to be something that everybody can afford. Red, over to you.
I'm here to talk to the retirees. We're here to look after you guys. We're definitely on your side. We understand that as prices go up, people on fixed incomes, the gap is harder to fund living day-to-day life as such. So we're going to keep the rates there lower. And it was sort of lower than first predicted as well. But at the same time, some of the council run library programs and some of the additional expeditions, they'll may be reduced. Community grants that support volunteer groups, they may become smaller. And aqua fitness classes, the fees there will unfortunately they'll increase slightly. For people who use these weekly services, those events can be felt more than other people who are out working on a day-to-day, pulling a wage in. The balance is real, but we're here to look after you.
Nice, thanks team. And this is quite fitting. I can finish off with rural ratepayers. And so, look, I think the consultation document highlights that many of our rural ratepayers don't use a wide range of council services or attend urban events because you're always too busy working, is my experience. But for you, look, the reduced rates increases are significant. I also recognise that you do contribute a significant amount through the general rate to this council, and we are very grateful for what you do provide. The user pays charges may increase for things like your dog registration and building consents, and many rural properties Some don't even receive drinking water or wastewater services, so some of the Selwyn water charges may not apply to you. If you are like me and have your own septic system, then wastewater charges don't apply, but we still receive drinking water, so that will be billed separately through Selwyn water. Often our rural ratepayers support a stronger user pays approach, but you have a big reliance on our roads, our drainage, some of it is the biodiversity and our regulatory services as well. So look, I think there's no single right answer for a lot of this. Lower rates means more user pays, maybe fewer or slightly smaller events, some phased or delayed projects, and less funding in some areas. But what council needs to understand is the impact that you feel is acceptable. Is there anything that we've gone too far here, and where the balance should sit for Selwyn as a whole? And that's why your submissions really matter. And Q, your feedback matters. And I think I talked about this at the start, is that we do read your submissions, and there are a lot. I know the last long-term plan, there was over 1,500 submissions, and reading those word for word is lengthy, but there is some real gold in what our community tells us. Your feedback can definitely influence and change any decision that council has on the table. It can change our priorities, and it can influence the final rates number decision. So look, the easiest thing that you can do is jump online at selwyn.govt.nz, annual plan, and all the documents are there. It'll link you to Have Your Say, and there you can find all of our drop-in sessions. You can find all the information you need. It's got a bit of a nice wee welcome there. And it has some FAQ, which I think is really great, and that might lead us into a pretty good Q&A session here. But what we're actually going to do as well is any questions that come up here, we're going to load that up onto there as well, and any that we don't get a chance to answer will be loaded there too. So we can cover off all of the questions that are put to us tonight. And you also have the option to come and speak to your submission at a hearing. So you come into the council chambers here and you get a few minutes to really highlight some things out of your submission. So you don't need to read the whole thing word for word. But it's really to highlight those key points. There's also some hard copies of the consultation documents and annual plan in our libraries, and so pop along there and you can get a copy and you can put your submissions in there as well. And if you're in Melbourne, if you're lucky enough to be in Melbourne, you can talk to your community board members, and so they are out and about in the community as well. So please check in with them too. So submissions close 11:59 p.m. So don't be late because you won't get it through on the Monday. So Sunday the 26th of April is the last day to get your submissions in, because we need to compile all of those, because there's going to be heaps. And we need to give them to councillors so that we actually get time to give our awesome thought into the hearings and the deliberations, because that's where the real gold happens, in the deliberations. And so that's where actually here we will make the decisions. And so deliberations is the 25th of May until the 5th of June, and that is the fun bit. Super excited for that. But also block out in your diary if you want to come along for consultation hearings. That's the 11th to 22nd of May. So we'll do some in the day, and we also hold space at night time as well, because we recognise people are at work, but they really want to come and talk to us too. So we make sure that we have flexible times for people to come and talk to us. And then by the 30th of June, we need to adopt an annual plan so that we can strike the rates, and that will be the next financial year. I need the questions. I'm chomping at the bit for the questions, and so hopefully people have put questions in. I'm sure there will be, because this is so interesting, and we've had a lot of thought into this. And we've got a question here from Fiona. The draft annual plan has made dramatic cuts, 75% to the economic development program. Has any assessment of this program ever occurred during its existence? What benefits has it created over the past 10 years? And have these benefits been measured? Fiona, we have had economic development has basically been in play for 2 years. And so actually, we haven't got a whole lot on this. And in my view, it's too much. I think that the budget that we have associated to it isn't going to give us the return that we are looking for. I think that working with our business partners and our university is actually a lot better way to deliver economic development. I think when things are community led, you get really good value from the money that you put into economic development. But I don't know if has anyone else got anything else on economic development?
No, that pretty much covers it. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'd say as far as it goes, we're Kiwis are a bunch of people with the number 8 wire and Kiwi ingenuity approach, and when it comes to economic development and opportunity out there, there's probably a lot of that gets passed back to the individual to see the opportunity, seize it, and make life happen and make something happen.
Yeah, I guess the other thing I'd say is that with the long-term plan coming up, there is an opportunity for businesses or a group of businesses to get together, and if they've got a project that they want to partner with the council, then we're open to that. But it's got to be about partnerships, relationships, and it can't always be 100% rates money. We need to work smarter than that.
Yeah. Cool. If the council agrees to the lowest rate option, what will happen next year? Are we just delaying the inevitable and getting a smaller increase this year, which will lead to a larger one in future years? Thanks, Anonymous. That is not the intention of this. I think that all of us here have listened to our community, and you have told us to save money, and that is exactly what we are trying to do. And we're trying to take that really big steer towards the long-term plan where we have a reset. And so that is what the long-term plan is that reset moment. So no, it is, in my view, it's not our intention to give a big rates rise next year. That is not our intention at all. In fact, I think we need to be pretty consistent with what we're doing. Okay.
I agree, and I think the important thing is that the long-term plan is where we can make those big long-term decisions to ensure that we can spread those rate increases out in a way that everybody can stomach. And we're all ratepayers, all 3 of us live here. We want consistency, and we want it at the lower end. And the long-term plan gives us that opportunity, which the annual plan doesn't, because some of the decisions, like really big projects, we want to look at procurement practices. Are there places that we can save money by doing things differently here? And if there is a $50 million project, saving 5% on a $50 million project is better than chipping away at a whole lot of small things. And that's the opportunity that the long-term plan gives this council.
Yeah, I was back that up too with what Lydia and Tracy have just said. As far as the long-term plan goes, that's where the big projects happen, and that's where we're going to really question ourselves where money's being spent on it, and get your submissions almost geared for that, for stuff that can be changed out of the current one.
I think it's also really important. Everything's a little bit up in the air for us at the moment, and when we talk about the Local Government Act, we need to deliver to that. And central government gave us that a pretty good steer that it's a get back to basics, and we're making that steer towards that as well. And using that to guide our decisions on, what is the core function of council, and what are the things that we really need to deliver, and then what are the other things. Why do the big rubbish bins get cheaper than the small ones? $2.02 per litre for a 240 litre one. Imagine a 400 litre bin, that'd be huge. And at $2.15 per litre for a small one at 80 litres. Doesn't seem fair. Everyone should pay the same per litre of rubbish. Don't you want to encourage less rubbish and more recycling and compost? Yeah, definitely.
Can I take that?
Yeah, I think Tracy's all over the she's all over the refuge.
Yes, we do want to be fair, and we do want to encourage people to recycle and find other ways to redirect waste, like to their vegetable gardens and what have you. But seriously, for years the charges on the 240 litre bins have actually been higher because they've been subsidising the 80 litre bins, and continuing the subsidy would keep making those 240 litre bins too expensive. So having balanced that, we're looking at how those prices can be corrected. So in some ways it's the opposite of your question. It's actually a little bit, it's been unfair to the big bin owners.
Fair and equal opportunity for all.
Including bins.
Including bins. Yeah.
The truck still needs to drive there and pick it up as well.
Yeah. Cool. Why can't the rates increase be a zero? Oh yeah. Well, that's not the first time that's been asked. Look, this is an extremely complex environment that we operate in, and inflation. I think we all know about inflation when you do your groceries, especially when you fuel up your car at the moment, and all of this has a big impact on what we do. It can't even be a zero this year because it's an annual plan, and so it's not possible. In my view, you would have to have gone through a special consultative process, and I honestly don't think that you would like the level of service change for it to be at a zero. I think there's a reason why the rates capping is at 2 to 4%, and it's within that bandwidth to say don't do a zero, because it has a detrimental effect on your community in the long run. I don't know, have you got anything to add?
There's nothing more from me.
No. Garbage collection.
Pretty smelly.
Yeah. Is there any monitoring of garbage that might support fortnightly collection, encourage households to reduce waste, encourage businesses to reduce packaging? Oh, Fiona, you are singing from our song sheet. This is exactly something that we want to consider. It's a change of level of service, and so we need to take it to the long-term plan. But that is definitely something that we want to consider there, and we need to have the conversation with our community around, are you happy to have fortnightly collection? I don't even have rubbish collection, so it gets a little bit hard, but would you be happy for your rubbish fortnightly?
The red one could get a bit smelly.
Yeah.
Fortnightly.
The rubbish bin.
The rubbish bin.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sorry, bit of levity. What I'd like to add is that one of the reasons that we know the answer to your question, Fiona, is because we asked it. That was one of the things we looked at for the annual plan, and we couldn't do it because it's a change of level of service. So hopefully that brings you some comfort that that is something that was not only on our radar, it was brought up, put forward and discussed.
Yeah, parked. Call it parked for the long-term plan. Good thinking. Dogs and consent should be moving towards being primarily or totally user pays. User pays should be priority here. Skip back. Anyway, I think I could probably guess what the rest of that was. I think that user pays is it is important to consider. It's also important to consider some part of it can also have a good general outcome for community. And we talk about the dog registration, and sometimes I've been part of dog hearings in the past where something has happened wrong in our community, and having the money to fund that process is really important, because that is a good outcome for community and for dog owners going through that hearing process. And so I think we need to make sure that we are covering our costs, but Tracy touched on it, that we don't want to make it unaffordable for people so that they're not registering their dogs, because that actually puts us in a more dangerous position. The dangerous dog fares are not high enough. Okay. Awesome. Yeah, love to see that in a submission.
Yeah.
Because I think that's fair, and that might actually offset some of the things that I've actually just said around dog hearings. With likelihood of dangerous dogs. Yeah, I mean, look, I've got dogs. I'm pretty happy to pay for their registration. They cost me a lot more than what my registration does. Very expensive, spoiled things.
And I think a lot of dog owners are the same. I will do a shout out to people who have dogs, who are retired, who are alone, for whom it is companionship and stuff like that. And I think we do have to, as a community, think about those people as well, because not everybody can afford these prices to keep going up, and their dogs are a valuable companion to them and causing no problems. And that's the same with other user pays. There's a lot of talk from time to time about, is crime going up in Rolleston and all of these things. So I think we also have to think about, would we rather subsidise our kids to go to a swimming pool after school and get physical exercise and tired, and then they're not on the streets, or whoever, that we have to balance all of those things about going, well, if we make everything user pays, what are the consequences beyond that just being more money in the rates coffer? There may be other unintended consequences which will make things more expensive through the back door.
Yeah. District Park Development Plan specifies a range of different uses: natural open spaces, formal gardens, tracks, trails, natural play and dog-friendly areas, multi-use hard courts and open grass areas for sports and events. Why can't it just be a park with trees, grass and paths? Throw to you, Big Red.
Well, the growth of Rolleston and Selwyn for starters is where it is, and it's going to keep going that way. And the problem is, if we don't keep up with the courts and fields and everything that goes with it, we're going to get left behind. But once again, this is another thing to put into our submissions. We have been lucky with the growth of Selwyn. We've been lucky with the growth of sport facilities that have actually come across in Selwyn. And if we don't continue to grow with it, we will get left behind.
I think what you've said in your question is actually exactly what we're asking. Is do we need to do everything right now? And the concept that had come back, is that something that we need to be doing right now, and can we do it in a staged space? And actually, is there anything else that could be useful there?
I think as well, I actually had a meeting with some people the other day relating to sport, and there are some capacity issues out there, but I think it's also about council getting alongside different sports codes and stuff and saying, are there other ways that we can deal with capacity issues that don't mean that we just keep building more and more sports fields that we all have to pay through our rates to maintain? Undoubtedly, in 10, 20 years' time, we're going to need some more fields, but let's make sure that in the time between now and then, we are utilising the fields we have and the turfs and the courts in the smartest way, and also looking to some of the sports to look at how they might change some of their behaviours about when they play and stuff like that, so that we are maximising our spaces for everybody.
And some of the questions that the councillors on the incoming council have also asked as well is where's the costings got to it, what can we trim back, what do we need and what don't we need.
Yeah, and I think this is a wee bit of a side quest, but it, you know, when we're talking about projects, it's not just the cost to do the project, it's the cost of the ongoing operational cost of that project that, you know, we need to be really cognizant of about, because that is the ongoing cost that you have to pay. That has to go out through our rates, and you know that is a long-term impact on our community. And so, you know, that is what we're questioning: are we delivering in a way that is going to give best value for the long-term benefit of this community?
So tell us what you think, what you want, how you think we can pay for it, all of those things. Blind us with your ideas.
In the District Park survey 2 years ago, people wanted planted areas, but stage 1 is sports field. Why? You all campaign on listening to feedback, and sports fields aren't what people prioritise. Broadfield Garden is for sale. Buy it for a planted area. Better location too, not a Raleigh Park.
Could I have a go?
Yeah.
I don't know if this helps the person asking the question or not, but coincidentally, in the last week or so, I have had some emails with a senior staff member, and they are looking at bringing us a high-level report as a matter of some urgency, so that we can try and look at that Broadfield Garden situation and sit it against the district plan and the goals for the district plan, and try to work out, is there another way to do this? So the short answer is yes, I do think we should be listening to feedback. Otherwise, us sitting here and saying to you, give us feedback. But also remember that if 1,500 people give feedback, they might have 1,500 different views on the same thing. So we still have to do a balancing act, and that's where we also have to rely on reports and analysis and evidence to back it up. And the really important one, I think, that Lydia's talked about is how much will a project cost for the whole of its life? Because we can, for instance, build a building for $10 million and people go, right, 10 million, but it's not 10 million. It's how much to keep the lights on and keep it running for the rest of its life and maintaining it. So Broadfield Garden is on our radar again. So somebody out there is in my head and should pop out because it's busy in there. And in the next week or two, I hope we have some more information so we can answer that question.
Yeah. You got anything?
No, we'll leave that one there.
Yeah.
Tracy's the Broadfield expert.
Yeah. This annual plan was developed before the Iran conflict and before Selwyn water increase. Realistically, the rates increase, whether flowing through this year or the following year, is going to be significantly higher than what is proposed. Has the inflation and interest assumptions been reforecast? Look, if we talk about the war and the impact that is having on us, it is something that is at front of mind for us, and you know, it's front of mind for staff as well, around running assumptions, thinking about other things that we have to scale back because we know that everything is going to increase, because most things, capital projects, require diesel, and the cost of diesel is, as everybody well knows, because of the burning hole in their pocket, gone up. So look, we are looking at that, and you know, it becomes really hard because next year is LTP. In my mind, we start fresh, we run the assumptions, and if we're going to have some pretty big decisions to make around what we deliver next year. And you know, I hope that the war doesn't hang around too long, because it'll have a pretty detrimental effect for our community around what we can deliver and what we can afford to deliver, because you know, substantial rate increases isn't palatable for our community.
I think the other thing to remember is that it's not just the cost of the machinery. PVC and all of those things are impacted by oil and as well. And I think it's where I would expect that the staff are doing what you've asked in your question, but also it's where we have to look really hard at our procurement practices as well to make sure that for things like pipes and other things that we've got multiple tenderers. that our procurement is as tight as it can be, so that we are able to put in place as many safeguards as are possible. And there is no question that there are projects on the council's books today that will be affected, and the costings will be higher because of it. And that will, as this person, I forgot their name, I apologise, is pointing out, and we will have to manage that. We don't have a choice.
Yeah.
As we know, the cost of fuel drives everything. This is just my 2 cents worth there. But we've already sent the message out, Lydia, Steve, we've sent it out to the council. Not that we should be wasting time or wasting trips in council vehicles, but the message has already gone out to say, hey, think twice about what we're up to, where we're going, and is there a way we can do 2 things at once?
What is the combined weighted increase for Selwyn, for council and Selwyn Water? Yeah, this is the question that everyone wants to know, including us. And so it's a little bit hypothetical at the moment until Selwyn Water finalise their water services strategy. But if we talk weighted averages, so that we put apples with apples rather than apples and oranges, Selwyn is our one that we've put a line in the sand and said that we have confidence in numbers is our 5.4. Our expectation is we can find further savings. We just need some time. And then if you take Selwyn Water and create a weighted average, so not the 18% to sit alongside that, it is looking like a 3 to 4%. But again, there is a really clear directive that we need to find further savings for both of us, for Selwyn and for Selwyn Water. We are in draft form. You know, there's actually been a lot of challenges with the transfer to Selwyn Water, and they have a lot of data to quantify. And until they quantify that data, we don't actually have the full cemented 100% certain number on that, but the expectation is lower. Any changes to the development contribution policy? Oh, look, that's a real hard one because we've been in such a deficit for such a long time that there's a bit of a catch up at play here. Our last finance and performance meeting, you know, we have a whole paper on DCs because it's such a big topic for us here, and the current DC policy is actually making a bit of a catch-up space, and so, you know, you don't want to go too far because actually you do impact business, you impact you know, mum and dad developers that just want to cut their section in half so that they could retire. And, you know, like it's a real fine line between impacting them and, you know, not all DCs are just for big developers. Actually, it applies to our businesses when people set up business. And, you know, if we go too much, it's very unpalatable for them and actually unaffordable for small business. So, you know, there's a lot of tension in there. I think what I'm hoping is that the development levies and again another West Side quest, I'm hoping that they're going to be more flexible for us when that legislation comes in, so we're not stuck in the space of with our current DC policy. If we want to change it, it requires that special consultative process, and then, you know, if everyone knows it's changing, all the subdivision consents go in before the policy changes so that you get the cheaper rate. And what we're hoping is that the development levies will actually change a lot of that and give us more flexibility around costing and for our townships as well.
And when we're referring to developers levies, we're referring to the new act coming in.
Yeah.
Correct
Yes.
for saying that.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's the new act coming in, team. Just also understand, like, this is a bit of bread and butter for me. I deal with a lot of people in my side gig. Subdivision of a residential section with a house on it, someone putting a house out the back or doing 2 units. At the moment, it's 35 to 40 to 70,000. The numbers coming back at the moment. As Lydia said, we've got to be careful how far you push that barrow because it stops development from happening and then it stops the growth.
Does the proposed rates increase take into account the overcharging of rates this year? The overcharging of rates, yep, mistake, and will be cleared up in your Q4 bill, and so we know that needs to be cleaned up before we step into a new financial year. So that will go into there, and yes, everything is being checked. That is partially why we have such a problem with quantifying lower numbers, because there's a lot of work going on in our team to make sure that the data and the numbers that we are giving you are correct. And I don't think it's fair to give you numbers that are not right. And so, yes, look, it will be, it's not the price off next year's financial, but they will be 100% correct, and you will get what you are owed in this financial year. What actions are being taken to make sure growth pays for growth? Current ratepayers should not be left holding the bill. Yeah, that's hard, isn't it?
That one's a tough one, and the Deputy Mayor and I were indirectly having a conversation about that before the session. It is a balancing act, and there's a number of bills before Parliament. I've done a submission on some, council's done submissions on them, just trying to get the balance right. And will growth pay for growth? One of our jobs is to make sure that our part of paying for the growth is done the best that we can do it. We have to control what we can control here at council, and that means a whole of council approach. And this council has been spending the last few months, and will continue to spend months, working out how we can change if needed be, how we do things here to make sure that these books are balanced in a way that it is not, that if growth is not paying for growth, it is not because of how the council is being run. And that's the only guarantee that we can give. And in a climate where a government could change, it might not change in a few months' time. These bills might go through, they might not go through, but we have to deal with today. And the things that we can control today are, how does the Selwyn District Council deal with and manage growth? And that's something we're really focused on, is managing growth well.
Do we need to do more to address the debt problem and look at the projects that lead to the debt?
Yes. And your opportunity, the annual plan is just part of the debt. Long-term plans, the long-term plan next year, when that rolls out for the next 10 years, got to really get amongst it and question some of the stuff that had been planned under the current long-term plan. I look around Selwyn. I've lived in Selwyn for 24 years. We've got some pretty awesome facilities here. I look around the local neighbourhood in my ward here. We've got Foster Park, we've got the new library, we've got the community centre. Yes, but we're pushing on the other park going through. I know that schools are not council responsibility, but our kids in our wards turn up to some pretty awesome schools. Jump out to Leaston. We've just pushed through Whareroa, going to the next stage there. Schooling there, awesome. Lincoln Event Centre, the grounds there, awesome. Well, you know, Prebbleton, Darfield, and in turn stuff will happen there. And out at West Melton, look at the community centre we've got there. Like, there's some pretty awesome facilities we've got here. What was the question?
Oh, the question was around debt. You digress a lot.
I don't. Everything that I've just talked about then, minus the schools, costs money. And if we want these flash facilities, unfortunately they cost money to build. Yes, some of them are offset with development contributions, which is great. But if we sit back and look at our rates and what we pay versus what our friends closer to Christchurch, our friends in Christchurch City pay versus what we get, we do get good bang for buck. But that's as someone would say, not everyone can get a bike for Christmas. and that's just what we've got to be careful of. And I say to the ratepayers out there, some of the requests we get, and unfortunately some of the complaints I get as well, I actually think if we satisfied everything that come across our desk, rates increase would be at 20% for the next 10 years, year on year. So there's a point where you've got to say no. We've all been shopping with the kid at the supermarket who wants a chocolate bar, throwing a tantrum because no, you're not getting the chocolate bar. Sometimes this is what it's like when we jump inside the building here. It's like we've actually got to say no to some stuff.
I'd just like to add that I was at a meeting in Leeston last night around flood prevention and stuff like that. And I think one of the things as a council is I agree with Brendan about the quality of stuff that we've got, but I think we've also got to accept that there are some, the Canterbury Plains are a flood plain, and the rain events that are flooding people's homes are coming more often. As a community, we have to start thinking about, if we're going to incur debt, where's the best place for us to incur that? And those are the hard conversations that are going to be had, because over in Ellesmere, flooding is a real thing over there. Their streets flood, their houses flood. So do we need more community halls, and do we need more community or sports buildings? We have to think about. Those would be great to have, but are our drains and our pipes and all of that going to do what they need to do for the next 10, 20 years? Because if we keep thinking in 1 and 3 year increments on things like flooding, we're going to let down our neighbours. It might not be my house that's flooding yet, but other people's are. And if we keep going the way we're going, it will be my house next, your house, and then we will have wished that we'd acted. So I think there's some really tough stuff around that flooding issue that we have to look at, which feeds into the debt. So what is it that we are prepared to incur debt for, and what don't we want to incur debt for? And that's why we do this thing called consultation and ask you for your submissions, so that we can try and make those balancing decisions.
Yeah. And I think it's, if we're going to say no to something, I think we need to be really clear why. Because I'm okay if someone says no to me, but I also like to understand why. And I think there's an obligation on us to have those conversations as well, to explain to our community why we can't, provide everyone with everything. Might be hard, but we need to do it. What mitigation strategies are in place or would be in place if high dog registration fees result in less registrations and or roaming dogs? Yeah, I mean, it's interesting, isn't it? And I think, what we'll be looking at is implementing this for the next financial year, and, bearing in mind we've got the long-term plan coming up. So, if it isn't right, we can always change it. And so, this is something that we'll actually be looking at really closely is, these are things that we monitor, is what do our dog registration numbers look like? And, from what we currently have, is there an influx of people not registering their dogs? Then we know we've pushed too far on this, and have to find some middle ground, because, we know that we love dogs here in Selwyn. We have a lot of dogs, and we recognise that not everyone loves a dog too. And people need to be safe and feel safe in their community. So look, I think it's something that we'll be monitoring, and how it's going, and you can always change.
I guess the other thing that I would add is that $8 a year, is that going to stop people registering their dogs? I'm thinking about the price of the dog food. I'm thinking about all those other prices that are going to be going up because of the increase in costs around transportation and all of that. So I think all of those things are going to go up in price. And so there will be if we see a drop off in dog registration, it may not just be because of the price of $8 extra a year. It could be those other factors as well. So there's a whole lot of juggling to do. But yeah, we're going to watch it and get some feedback and see what happens.
What is the 946k on land drainage ecological enhancement compared to $0 in the long-term plan. That is a great question.
That is a great question.
Actually. I do know that I have it here in my book. This is what Tracy has alluded to around our planning. And so this is around the implementation of catchment management plans to improve water quality and to meet our consent conditions. So actually things need to change. We actually are looking at compiling our consents for land drainage into one consent rather than having lots all over the place. We need to bring that back down, so that is part of that project. But it's actually, yeah, it's around catchment management plans, and we are bound by legislation around water quality and what we are discharging there as well. So look, there's a lot of challenges. What we're doing, we recognise that land drainage is really important to our community, and we need to make that investment in our community. It is a core function of council, and it is important.
I think the other thing is that, I think the other thing as well is that there's been talk about desilting the L2, and that requires a consent application to ECAN. So these things that we do, anything that alters the environment, we have to go through ECAN. That's a process. There's reports and so on. So while there's people out there who want to digger take in and just desilt the thing, and that's certainly one way to deal with it, that has a whole lot of, no pun intended, downstream consequences. And if we break the rules, our own rules, and do things like that, how do we then hold you to account when you break a rule, whether it's over a building fit for purpose or whatever? So there's all that going on as well. So what I can say relating to the L2 is, to my knowledge, there is a consent application for desilting underway, but these things take time.
Yeah. It does take time, and the first thing you've got to do is invest, and you need dollars to do things as well. Why are there no rating examples? Well, that's a yarn, isn't it? Look, I think this is something that we've all wanted. When we look at the rating examples and we looked at the year 3 LTP data, it is so far from what we have that actually at the current state we can't give you the good rating examples. Like, I know what you're asking for. It's the ones that were in the long-term plan, and it gave you the example. There were pages of them, and you could figure out who you were and see that. And with the transfer of Selwyn Water, our year 3 LTP data, and so year 3 budgeting, a lot changes in that time frame, and so the data is so wrong. It's actually pretty unfair to give you those rating examples, because they won't be correct. With the public consultation, how are the views of the silent majority, those who don't make submissions, taken into account? Is it assumed they support the proposed increase? And if so, how is it that balanced against the potentially smaller group of people who do submit and may influence the final outcome? Oh, that's a big question. Look, we are really aware that we have been elected from all different parts of our community, and we all bring really diverse views to the table as well. And so, who we represent isn't necessarily, just the group of people that come and tell us something at the council table. And it's part of our role to consider our entire community. We need to consider many views, but ultimately we are elected to make good decisions on behalf of the community. So we're aware of the tension that sits in that, and I think I can say submit. It's not overly complicated. The questions are pretty simple. It leads us into a great space here of the draft annual plan on Have Your Say, because, your view is really important to us. And, sometimes if we don't hear from you, there is a bit of guesswork. But yeah, Tracy, read you.
Yes, submit. And those your friends who you're referring to, who are talking to you, if they're having a whinge and a moan and a cry about something, now's the opportunity to actually say, hey, you've actually got an opportunity to submit it. And if you don't submit what your thoughts are, you can't complain about it.
And I would just follow that up. I agree. I also think that we can't categorise everybody who didn't submit as a single group called the silent majority, because we do not know that everybody who doesn't submit thinks the same thing. And I would go so far as to say that the opposite is probably true, that if it's the majority of people, there's going to be a cross section of their views. And so to suggest that everybody who didn't submit thinks this or they think that is doing a disservice to those people. People don't submit for 1,000,001 reasons. And all we can do is ask you again and again, put something into us. One sentence is a submission. It doesn't have to be a book like I might write if I was doing one. A sentence, a paragraph. Tell us what you think, what you want.
There's even just tick boxes.
There are just tick boxes. So go online. I had somebody today say to me, I need a hard copy, where can I get it? So this was on Facebook, and I said, this person's in Rolleston. I said, go to the library. She messaged me 3 hours later saying she picked 2 copies up from the library. I also know somebody who's going to write a submission who's in their pre-retirement life was an infrastructure engineer. So there's lots of different people submitting. So if you're thinking of not submitting and that somehow that's going to create a magical outcome, it's not going to create a magical outcome. Submit and be damned.
All right, team. We were supposed to wrap up at 7 o'clock, but we were having so much fun answering all the questions. Look, if there's some left over, they will be answered in the next 48 hours. They will be up on the annual plan consultation webpage, so you can check out the answers there. And this is a big thank you for everyone that's engaged. Thanks for the team for putting all the tech on to actually get us on live. Yeah, what a challenge. I'm so grateful that you are doing that and not me. But I think the volume of questions that we've had through shows that our community is really engaged in what we're doing, and that's something that I think we are really proud of at this council, is the engagement with our community. And so thank you for your time. If you're rewatching this, yeah, I hope you got your popcorn out for the great answers that are proposed here. We know that we probably haven't answered everything in the level of detail that you want, but we're happy to engage further. Please check out our other dates where we will be out in person, and we look forward to seeing you there. You guys got any?
Yeah.
No, that's it. Thanks, team.
Thanks everybody.
Cool. Thank you.
Consultation is now open for Selwyn District Council's annual plan. Your feedback helps shape our priorities, projects, and the services that affect our day-to-day lives and the future of Selwyn. Whether you're happy with the plans or want to see some change, we want to hear from you. Find out what Council has proposed, how it could help ease pressure on household rates, and what it means for you. Visit selwyn.govt.nz/annual plan. Have your say, Selwyn.